I've not seen the Broadway original of Dear Evan Hansen, so is that going to make a difference in how I receive this? But more importantly though, is this a good movie? Is this musical drama worth checking out? And no, I'm not going to be singing just in case you're worried. A high school senior with social anxiety disorder goes on a journey of self-discovery and acceptance following the suicide of a fellow classmate. Okay, right off the bat, clearly, Ben Platt looks way too old to be a high school kid. But this didn't bother me terribly. I mean, I used to watch Luke Perry in 90210, and that dude was obviously not in high school. Now, the beginning of the movie is kind of a rough start, as we're just kind of thrust into Evan and his anxieties. The song also took a couple of beats to connect with me. Ben Platt's mannerisms are a little over-exaggerated during some of this, which was weird. I mean, they make total sense for a stage performance where you need to over-emote so people can see you, but when there's a camera right in front of you that's able to focus in closely, the bigger facial expressions no longer look expressive, but more awkward or creepy. And sometimes when Evan sings, he has a twisted look to him, so the visual mixed with the vocals create a different tone altogether. Now, Platt nails the gawky and nervousness of the character. The stammering and stuttered movements, combined with the fidgety, just almost incessant muttering, help to create a persona of somebody who's clearly not comfortable with themselves nor with their surroundings. Some of the character interactions are clunky and feel more like the actors were searching for their lines because of how they come across. And some of the conversations don't flow well and the timings feel off. And I'm not talking about Evan's dialogue. His is meant to be uncertain in the delivery, which is the majority of the time. Some of these do begin to smooth out as the story moves along, though. And I'm glad, though, that the future conversations between Evan and other students do feel a bit more natural, even if they're still wildly awkward and stunted just because of Evan's anxiety. The progression of the story is pretty predictable, but that's not a complaint. It is a bit rough to watch, though, because we can see the train wreck that's quickly approaching as a result of Evan's actions. That discomfort continues to build, and I honestly was not looking forward to the explosion that I knew would arrive once the truth actually came out. Now, there are some abrupt tonal shifts that were jarring to me. Sincerely Me, I think that's what the song is called, gave me a bit of whiplash. And it wasn't the song itself. I mean, I really enjoyed the way that one played out, but it was how we go from down and depressing to upbeat and cheery in like a beat and a half. And that imbalance of tone was odd, and it could have been transitioned better to allow us to flow more gracefully with the story. Aside from Platt's weird facial movements that I mentioned earlier, I really enjoyed the cast of characters. Kaitlyn Dever is the right amount of angry, hurt, and sweet. Amy Adams plays the grieving mom excellently. I mean, she is a woman who's holding on to anything positive about her son just in order to keep a happy memory. And I truly bought her performance, and it was constantly a heartbreak just watching her move through her stages of grief. I think it would be very easy to classify Evan as a heartless liar, but I think if you look at him as this flawed boy who gets caught in a misunderstanding, and because he's just so socially anxious, it's easier for him to go along with that misunderstanding. And then as the lie begins to snowball, it's a seemingly inescapable situation, one that is either going to play out forever or it's going to be discovered and all hell is going to break loose. When I look at it from that perspective, it was easy to grant Evan a lot of compassion and even forgiveness. I mean, when the lie began, it wasn't malicious. He was kind of just selfishly kind. And I understand that that's a contradiction, but he did something he felt was kind to the family, but for reasons that were ultimately selfish. I mean, we have a dude who's terrified of any conversations, and then when it's assumed that he is best friends with this kid who just killed himself, how in the world could he realistically break the kids' parents' hearts while they're already heartbroken? Now, this being a musical, I do have to address the songs. And I read online that the movie cut 4 songs from the original Broadway production. And since I haven't seen that version, I don't know how those songs impact the overall narrative. I think the songs we get were moving and performed well. Now, there were a couple of times where the mix felt off, just where the vocals became a bit buried by the instruments. And it's not like they became unintelligible, but they were harder to understand in some moments. I think the cast also performs the songs well. Not all of them were knocked out of the park, but I also don't think that all of them are professionally trained as singers. I mean, I enjoyed what they brought to the production, and I think that You Will Be Found is my favorite song overall. I just love how it builds, and then it's complemented by this giant choir. But that being said, the way a portion of that song is executed visually is kind of cheesy. It has this montage that feels more like it's a 5G wireless advertisement. I enjoyed the cinematography in this also for the most part. There's a ton of symmetry to the way the shots are framed, especially as the cast is performing songs. The camera places them squarely in the middle of the screen. Whether they're walking down a hallway or driving down the street, the singer is figuratively and literally the center of our focus. Now, this is a minor nitpick, but there is a point where Evan has his cast removed from his arm. And if you've ever had a cast, you know that the inside of that cast when it's removed is just nasty, as is the skin of the appendage that was encased in that cast. But when Evan's is taken off, it's pristine inside and out, as is his arm. No flaky skin, no muscle atrophy. It looks like the cast was just put on a few moments before they cut it off. Now, I know it's very minor, but the detail stood out to me as somebody who has broken several bones, and then some of them more than once. I'm not sure the movie will leave you all bright and cheery, and I don't think it's meant to. We do have a resolution to the story, and while it's not totally depressing, it does still retain a certain sadness that's mixed with hope. Now, the story also feels a bit longer than its 2-hour and 17-minute runtime. And that's actually pretty short for a musical production, especially one adapted from a Broadway play, but yet it still felt like it dragged in a few spots, especially when songs weren't being performed. So overall, Dear Evan Hansen is a mixed bag, where the music is engaging and the central story of a hurting teen caught up in a lie is heartbreaking and engrossing. I don't think the execution is flawless, and some of the dialogue delivery could have been reworked, but on the whole, I connected with Evan's story, even if he's not wholly relatable to me. I am very curious, though, how those that have seen the Broadway play will or won't connect with this. So if you've seen both, be sure to let me know in the comments. There's no sex or nudity, but some profanity and no violence, other than some descriptions of violence, which include self-harm. I give Dear Evan Hansen 3 out of 5 couches. So what'd you think of the movie? Do you have a favorite song? Let me know what it is in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.